Welcome to this meeting of the Nashua Finance and Operations Committee, the school board. It is Tuesday, February 11th, and we are in the Nashua High School North Boardroom. And I'm calling this meeting to order at 4:31. Thank you, Shawanda. Okay, so I'm here. Mr. Claffey?
Present.
And Ms. Daniels-Williams?
Here, thank you.
Okay, and we also have Mr. Gray and Mr. Smith and Mr. Rodriguez, and I'm sorry, I can't remember your name.
Talbot.
Helene Talbot.
And Helene Talbot.
Thank you.
Two T's. Two T's at the end. Two T's.
Okay, so we're going to start tonight with the CTE purchases, I guess.
Yeah, so Helene will give just a high-level overview of what we're looking for, and then answer any questions.
So from what I understand, the equipment that we are replacing is about 50 years old. I guess it started at the original Nashua High and they moved it over here. From what Gary and his department says, it's really, really good stuff. So they waited to replace it because obviously what you replace it with today is not the same stuff we got 50 years ago. We ended up getting some really good pricing. We wanted to go with Kittredge, who came in the highest, and basically Gary went back to them and showed them the other quotes, and they did a much better job. So we're happy about that because they're local, and it's just nicer to deal with somebody that's local. And so basically this is just replacements for things. 2 of the ovens are broken. The double pizza oven is not working at all. The convection oven, Plan Ops did try to fix that, and they couldn't fix it. It's funny, the gas hot plates and the stainless steel table, the gas hot plates are going on the original stainless steel tables that are 50 years old, and what we're doing is we're having them, I don't know, they're like painting stainless over it. So we're keeping the original tables because they're so much nicer than the new tables. And then we're just adding the hot plates to them. So all this came up to, we're gonna try to go with Kittredge for $66,654.
This money will come from the CTE budget, right?
Yep, so this money is going to come directly out of actually the CTE special revenue budget. So they have plenty of money in there. They went ahead and had planned to go ahead and update some of this equipment when we originally planned the budget last year. So there is absolutely money available for this purchase, and it's coming directly out of the CTE budget.
Okay, that's great. It sounds really exciting.
Yeah.
Will this, I know the CTE program is growing. Will these things that you purchase be enough for a while? Or do you think you'll need more at some point down the road a little bit?
Yeah, so right now, we're also looking for quotes for the furniture. So the CTE program really hasn't been updated since at least 2003, when the building was built. So we are looking to replace the furniture in there. We're just waiting on some quotes and stuff. This stuff had to be done right away because it's not working. And the class is pretty full. We just hired a new teacher, and we're finding that the enrollment's growing. It's a happy little place.
Oh,
So,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah.
Helene will be bringing, as we get closer to fiscal year 26 budget, we'll kind of talk through some of the projects and stuff we'll probably plan for next year. There might be some additional spending between now and the end of this fiscal year related to the CTE program.
Is there any, controversy over what part of the CTE department gets to spend the money? Or is it just that you guys kind of take turns and whoever needs it the most gets to spend it?
I feel like what I did was I just looked at the programs that need the most work that haven't been updated. Crystal and I talked about really coming up with like a 3 to 5 year plan. But I do that with the staff. We're looking at the engineering department for next year possibly, but probably looking at how much money we have and how much it costs to redo it. So if we take one program at a time, we should be okay.
Okay.
We can wait.
Yeah, I think similar to, even plant operations or technology, almost like what is the CT plan, right? So as Helene mentioned, a 3 to 5 year kind of snapshot. And I think as we get through budget season for fiscal year '26, we'll kind of talk through some of those initiatives and kind of what the vision is.
Okay. Did you have any questions, Neil or Shawanda?
So I guess my question would be, so that we definitely have enough money in the CTE special revenue fund for this. Do we have, how much money is left in there? And if we're looking at, replacing the furniture, will it come before or after the budget?
That will come before. So basically what Crystal and Mario and I talked about is that every year we should try to just plan a project that basically only spends the tuition that comes in for that year. So we have some money in there that we're not touching, we're just keeping as reserve. There's so much expensive equipment that are in these programs that if something breaks, we need to have something to fall back on, one of these big machines. So basically, I think what our budget is going to be based on is just the money that comes in from the other schools. So every year we get money from the other schools coming in, and we'll try to just spend that and keep the money we have in there so that it's there.
Smart play.
Yeah.
First, thank you, Ms. Talbot, for stepping up and taking the position of CTE Director. I think this is the second or first year?
First year.
So thank you, because I know you're principal, assistant principal, different levels. You committed in Nashua, and thanks for stepping up. And the only question I had was, I know the previous culinary arts teacher was here a long time, and I'm just curious why he didn't request new equipment that is obviously outdated. Because I don't ever, at least in the last 3 years, I don't remember any requests for this. So why did it
I
take so
think
long?
because it broke, to be honest with you, because they're not working. So I think they waited because, like I said, they're just made so much better than the stuff that you get now that they waited. And Plan Ops did a good job. They kept they've rebuilt those things a few times instead of buying new ones. So I think it's just time.
Okay. All right, well, I'm going to make the motion to approve the purchase of updated cooking equipment for the Nashua High School North Culinary Arts Program from Singer Kittredge of Bow, New Hampshire, in an amount not to exceed $66,654.21, and that will come from account 91.2258.041300,
Second motion.
71000. And that is the Nashua High School CTE programs.
Okay, I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Thank you, the motion passes. When will you be getting the new equipment, do you think?
I have no idea. Hopefully soon.
Yes. I hope you enjoy it.
So from a process standpoint, it's approved here. It'll go on Monday, next Monday, to the
full
broader
board.
board. Once they approve it there, we'll go ahead and approve purchase orders and then
Okay.
get stuff ordered probably next week.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
There is a chili contest on your way out. Yes.
Yeah, when I was walking in, I was like, ooh, it smells really good. Stove's not broken, that's the other.
So next we have the high school bell system.
Okay, I'll lead off with that. Talking about stuff that's been here for ages, I've been here for ages. When the North and South High Schools were built, we had all new systems, all new PA systems, bell systems, phone systems, and everything else. And like everything, the useful life of those has come to an end, and we're looking to replace them. About a year ago, I would say none of this was on any of our radars. Everything was working fine. We had maintenance issues, we repaired them, and everything was going fine. But with the change over to the phone system, then we started to have some issues with it. And at this point, we have to manually reset the system every single day. There are speakers in various parts of the schools that are not working or have an issue with the sound. So as you can imagine, the PA system is very important to the schools. That's how they get messages out. If there's an emergency of some sort, or if somebody has to come to the office, that's how they communicate. And with our systems, the bell system is actually connected to the PA system. So again, the tones go out when time to change classes and things like that. The system is so old, so it was originally a simplex system. They send out technicians, and many of them have no idea. It's that old. So it's tough to get maintenance to take care of it. So we had great success with a company named Bogan. That's actually a little more of a simpler system. That's in all our other schools, and that's what we're looking to go to here. We sent out invitations to bid, what we called the 3 vendors that we're aware of that deal with this sort of thing. And the 2 of them decided not to bid. The primary reason they decided not to bid is when you're dealing with a specified system like Bogan, it's not their territory. So a firm has the territory, they get the preferred pricing from the lead company, the national company. That's exactly what we saw happen here.
Okay.
So that's why you're not seeing multiple quotes. So we're recommending we go with Telephone and Network Technologies, or AKA TNT. You may recall a month ago, we talked about $200,000 for the cost of this. That was before TNT got in, took a good look at the systems. Our plans from back then weren't entirely up to date. So the numbers of speakers, for example, went from 450 to 580 in each of the schools. So that's a sizable increase. At the same time, we've been trying to add a visual ability for staff and students to hear the PA system. So if you're in a large area like a cafeteria that's very noisy, the gymnasium is very noisy, we're adding strobes. So when the strobes will be off on the sides of the walls, that'll be it's intention getting things so they'll listen, hopefully, to the announcement that comes across. And then finally, the other addition to the $200,000 was we have to replace the speakers on the outside of the building. We find, you may have heard, we had some mice issues every now and then. Some of those little critters have been eating the wiring and some of the speakers. That's just one of the issues that we've been dealing with. So the total now is, for both high schools from TNT, is $262,939. And I'm recommending a 10% contingency just in case. I hope we don't have to spend that. But it's pretty standard, at least when I come before you, to ask for a contingency fund. So then that raises the total to $289,226. So of that, $200,000 is going to be funded by the IT department, and the other $89,226 by deferred maintenance. So then you ask, well, we already approved the deferred maintenance, what's going to give? And the short answer is the tennis courts at the South High School. They're still in decent shape. You know, I try to get ahead of it and do preventive work on these sorts of things before we get there. So it does not hurt us really to push that back for a year. And those are my recommendations.
Is the extra $89,000 about equal to what the tennis courts were going to be?
Tennis courts were $100,000 is
Okay.
the estimate.
All right. I just was wondering, we have to replace all this stuff for the high schools, but the telephone system, did it mess up the system, the intercom system at the elementary and middle schools too?
Short answer, no. Long answer, because the Bogan system is more compatible at the other levels, including the middle schools. Really, no issues at the other buildings. But the high schools, since those systems are so old, about 21 plus years old for both, between both locations. Yeah, when technology evolves and you're looking to integrate, old systems don't really mesh well with new systems. So, I mean, old systems don't mesh well with new systems. So that was kind of where we were seeing the things starting. But as we uncovered more issues like with speakers.
Yeah.
They've been broken. So like these things, this is an opportunity to refresh our entire intercom system at both schools, so we can be more up to date and really in the name of safety is where we're at with this. So.
Do you, and we've had some extra expenses because of the new telephone system. And do you envision any other things that we might be having a problem with down the road?
I do not. This should be it.
Okay. All right, well, you have a question, Mr. Williams?
So every time we come to this, I ask the same question and you say the same thing, no, there's nothing else. Here we are again today with something else to do with that phone system. No, this is gonna be all set, we shouldn't have anything else. Who looks at that to see what connects to what? Like Mr. Smith always talks about, okay, well, we have to get this overall look on everything. Whose job is it to get the overall look on this so that we don't keep coming back for the same projects because we upgraded it and spent money, and now we have to upgrade it some more and spend money because now it doesn't work? Whose job is that?
I'll jump in real quick, and then I'll let the two of you hop in too. I appreciate the question for sure, because I think that Mr. Smith and Greg would agree. Dr. Andrade and I have poked a ton of holes at this, right? In the sense of, I hear what you're saying. There's been some things that have happened and have come forward to the board that weren't anticipated and weren't expected whatsoever, right? And we have to make sure there's a fine line that we're creating our due diligence on every system, regardless if it's plant operations, technology, CTE. We have to make sure we're doing the best we possibly can, right, from a due diligence standpoint, so we don't have these surprises. I mean, you know, where Dr. Andrade and I are coming from, it's like, we're talking, right, $290,000, kind of unexpected at the start of the school year.
Or every 3 months or every other F&O meeting is the same thing that, like, I've only been here a year and I have asked the same question each and every time, like, will this inquire something else? And the person that, I just want to know, like, should we wait on this and make sure that we check every system, get it all together, and then come with one whole number? Or is it intentionally broken into these pieces as on purpose, you know?
Yeah, and again, I'll let the two of them jump in just a second. I don't think any of this is on purpose or intentional, honestly. I think it's kind of just like owning a house at times, right? You might decide to do a project. Once you dip into it, there's even more. And unfortunately, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's what happened here. And trust me when I say, being a newer COO with the district, right, I'm poking a ton of holes to be like, well, why didn't we know this? Last month, it was on the documentation that Mr. Smith brought forward, and now this amount is different. So Dr. Andrade and I have had several conversations with the two of them to say, well, what more, right? Because the last thing we want to do is be coming here month after month saying, just kidding, it's now X amount more. So just wanted to add a little bit of clarity there too.
Right, yeah, I'll go along with the history of the phone system. So the original phone system was replaced in 2016 or 2017. So we had to replace the one coming up because all the equipment and parts at other schools were end of life. So as part of this upgrade to our phone system, we were going to incorporate an emergency notification system that integrates with all intercoms in the district that can be access at a computer, a cell phone, whatever, an admin console. As part of that, we had to install these zone controllers to actually make that work, so the emergency notification system does work. Seeing as Simplex is the two intercom and bell systems at both high schools, they weren't as compatible as the Bogans are at every other school. So the Bogans are more expandable than the Simplex systems were. The Simplex systems, to actually do the bell, I'll just give you just an example of how antiquated the system is. To program the bells at North, you must dial in with an analog phone directly into the actual console. Like that's it. You can't even access it through a computer or a GUI of any sort. So this is the level of we're having antiques for our bell systems at the high school. So like, that's just where we're at. And with the upgrades, like Crystal said, you owning a house, you open up walls, and that's what you see. And to make sure that we're checking off the boxes with this part, this is why we brought in a team to actually look at it. This is why it's so itemized as to what we need. And they went through a checklist with Gary Connors and Wayne Pauley and Sean and myself. And we also met with the building principals as well. So a representative from Bogan came in, and also the president of TNT came in the meeting as well to even make recommendations that further, because that's, this is what we can do to make, your system, as bulletproof as possible.
I think just, it might be helpful, right? So the computer equipment line that the 200,000 is coming from for the IT portion, I already had asked Greg and team, how do we have 200,000 basically available in that computer equipment line? So as folks are probably aware, we had some ESSER funds that had come through over the last couple of years. As I continue to say, the ESSER money tree is no longer there, right? So correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, but there was some computer equipment that we were able to purchase with ESSER funds. So that is why there is a surplus of funds available in order to do this project. And thankfully, we had some ESSER money prior to. Right, so it did allow us to help offset some of the computer equipment. So I've already asked the question of, if we're gonna take this money out of computer equipment because we need to do this project, which is extremely important and from a safety standpoint, I wanted to make sure we weren't going to lose out on other equipment we need to purchase. And my understanding at this time is that answer is no.
Okay, Mr. Claffey?
I was just wondering, if we hadn't made the updates to the phone system, would the speakers and the intercom system still need to be updated given the age? Because I don't think it's that, well, we committed to this phone system, therefore we have to change the intercom and the speakers. Are they kind of independent?
When everything was installed, they were independent. You had a phone system, you had the Simplex system. And then as things got integrated, that's where the issue is. You had analog mixing with digital, and it created all this. The existing system is
When you say system, you mean intercom and
intercom
speakers?
systems, what we're talking about, yeah. It's still somewhat working. We are having issues, but nothing terrible. But it is reaching the end of service life. It's been over 20 years.
So would you have expected to have to replace that anyway in the near future, given the average life expectancy of
It honestly wasn't on my radar. When I create the deferred maintenance list, it was not on there yet, but it probably would have popped on in the next few years.
And from a safety perspective, given that announcements are made about issues, security,
Yes.
can we as a district risk not having 100% assurance that messages from the main office get to classrooms?
We definitely want that.
I don't see how, we do drills based on announcements that are made, and if they don't get conveyed, we're gonna have a serious problem. So I don't see how we say no to this. And
Right.
from a safety standpoint, I'm glad we're doing it.
One more question.
Sure.
When do we foresee this coming online? Like, when will this happen?
We're looking at April break is what we're looking at.
Okay, so right now, it doesn't work?
It's working as a very manual, so we had to kind of wake the system up every morning. So the head custodian at South goes in and dials in, so it's a dial cast thing. So this intercom system does work for the.
How long will that dial-in system, how long have we been doing it, and how long would that last?
We've been doing it probably a few months now.
Okay, and how long will it last?
I ideally would like it just to be automated, and with this system, we won't have to do that. So I'm like, we're limping along is what we're saying, so.
I think if the approval was there prior to February break,
Yeah, with February break.
what
would
I
be
have
next
heard is they potentially could have done the work or could do the work February break. But based off of the approval and stuff in timing, I think we're planning for an April break for them to go ahead and update everything. But of course, if we can do it sooner, we absolutely will.
Yeah, we want to minimize downtime for people too. So like we can't do this during school hours because we don't want there to be no announcements. And they would have to take the system offline during the time. So it would either been February break or April break. And the next best opportunity is probably April break because of all, as you can see, the itemized list of equipment is pretty extensive. So South High School is going to be done, which is in more dire need. That's going to be done during April break, and we're thinking the last week of June is what we're for North High School to be completed. That will be our next break. So.
Okay, if there's no further questions, I'm going to make the motion. Motion to approve the contract with TNT to replace the intercom and clock systems at both high schools in the amount of $289,226. Funding to come from IT account 91.1.992225, 71221, in the amount not to exceed $200,000, and from the deferred maintenance account in amount not to exceed $89,226. That's correct.
So moved.
All right, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thanks. Have a nice night.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, we're ready, Mr. Smith. You're going to talk about the wood floors first?
Sure.
Okay.
So every year, we refinish the wood floors in the district. Gyms are done every year, and the CAFs are pretty much done every year. We have 3 wood floor cafeteria floors, I believe. And the stages we take a look at every year and decide whether or not they need a couple coats. So we put out an RFP for this work, and we received responses. And the lowest qualified bid was some New England sports floors, and I'm recommending $45,000 from that, with funds from our contract services line, with the numbers on the memo. We did receive a couple of the quotes. If you look at the numbers, the very wide dispersion, we've tried to reach them and they haven't returned our phone calls. If you look at one of them, it's like 10 times the amount of the other one, and it's exactly 10 times, which makes me wonder if they were in cahoots and then they somehow, moved the digit over, decimal over one. But regardless of all that, New England Sports Floor was the low bid, and they've done our work for us for a good number of years. They've done the work in the construction process for Harvey, for our gymnasiums, so they're a very reputable and good firm. So the bid was for 3 years, and then the first year I'm asking for 45. That's a little bit above their bid, but every year we find a loose board or something that they have to repair, and that gives me a little wiggle room to take care of those things.
Does he, like, how many of the floors usually end up being done for, if we do them all, $45,000 seems like a really good deal.
We do them all,
All of them, all of them every year, huh?
except for Mount Pleasant, which is a tile floor.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, do you guys have any questions? Okay, I'm going to make the motion to approve, motion to award a 3-year contract to New England Sports Floors. For 2025, the recommended amount is not to exceed a total of $45,000, which allows the refinishing work to be done in addition to minor floorboard replacement as needed. Funds to be provided by Plant Operations, line 91.1.222620, 53628, Contract Services.
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Claffey. And all those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, the next one is for the pavement markings. So again, every year we paint all the lines and all the parking lots, all the fire lanes where it says no parking fire lane. Some of the curbs are painted, roadways, access roads, fire lanes. And we've done this every year. And this, again, I put out an RFP. for a 3-year period, and we received proposals from 5 firms, a little tighter grouping than we saw with the other one, wood floor. And the low bid, qualified bid was from Pro Finish Lines Company. And for 2025, I'm recommending not to exceed $40,000. Again, that's slightly above the bid they provided, but it provides a little contingency in case we add lines, add numbers, that sort of thing. Also would come from contract services.
Is this company, do they do it for us every year?
They do not. Actually, this is a new company for us.
Oh, really?
The other company finished second, and I hear that the owner retired and moved to Florida, and his sons are taking over the business. And all the numbers are up for us. I think we budgeted maybe half of this at one point. We've increased that for next year. But we're checking references. So far, so good. They do work in New Hampshire.
You don't have any reservations about going with them? Okay. All right, that sounds good to me. Any questions, Mr. Glaffey, Shawanda, Dan Williams? Okay, well, I'll make the motion. I'm falling way behind on my writing. The motion is to award a 3-year contract to Pro Finish Lines Company. For 2025, the recommended amount is not to exceed a total of $40,000, which allows the pavement painting work to be done, in addition to minor lining or numbering changes. Funds to be provided by Plant Operations Line 91.1.22.2620.53628, Contract Services.
Second that motion.
Thank you. And all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you.
Again, that does all the schools too, so it's all
That's great.
campuses.
Oh, go ahead.
Except for Birch Hill and Maine Dunstable?
For 2025, yes.
Okay, okay.
I'm just wondering, like, because it's a 3-year contract, does this mean you don't come back to us for 3 more years to approve the
I
contract?
believe so. As long as we follow the contract and follow the numbers that were provided, we should be all set.
Okay, all right, that's great.
You do have the numbers for the subsequent years in your package.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Which will be very helpful as we move through the budget season.
Yes. Yes, all right, thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
No, it's okay. I was giving you a minute to write. No rush.
Okay, so what
All right.
are we gonna do next? What are we gonna do first?
Sure. So the next one, why don't we hop over to the district office purchases? We'll kind of stay in order of the agenda to go ahead and talk about / approve the conference room divider. So I'm sure most of you, if not everybody, has been to district office. There is a conference room that we tend to use for a lot of the meetings. It is 2 conference rooms. One is slightly larger than the other. Most of the time, we try to go ahead and, depending on what meetings are in there, we're either using the front half of the conference room, the back half, or the full conference room. So my understanding is there's been some money set aside for some projects that needed to be done at district office. So we absolutely have this money in the budget. It's actually sitting in a trust fund. And it's specifically to be utilized for updates to district office. So Dr. Andrade, myself, and the team would like us to go ahead and purchase a panel divider. It's gonna provide some additional sound blocking. So if we are utilizing the front half of the conference room, the second half of the conference room can still be used for any special education meetings, any IEP meetings, any other meetings. And this divider would actually provide some type of soundproofing so that we can utilize both of the conference rooms. So this will be a panel divider that we can either leave open or close, depending on the size of the conference room that we need. As we go through some of the negotiations and stuff, I'm sure some folks will see that we definitely need a big conference room, so we would be pushing the divider back. So our recommendation is to actually go with CRF Inc. for the panel divider. We'd like to go ahead and use the trust fund, and the quotes are in the packet, but our recommendation is to go ahead and purchase that to not to exceed $12,250, again, coming from that trust fund account that is specifically designated for updates to district office.
Is they talk about additional sound installation might be necessary. Is that included in the quote as
Yeah.
is?
Yes,
Okay,
it
that's
is.
great.
Yep.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the accordion divider compared to the panel divider, you know, there's a little bit of a discrepancy there, but the panel divider is definitely going to give us more of that soundproofing. So some of those special meetings that we are having in that second half of the conference room related to students, any testing, you know, if there's a case that comes in and we need to do a threat assessment for a student, we are usually using that back half of the conference room. So to have a sound divider in there will be extremely beneficial.
Do you know what the lifespan of this will be? Will it be similar to the one you had before?
Yep, my understanding from talking to the team is it could be, depending, of course, how much we utilize it, how much you're pulling it back and forth. But it should be anywhere from 10 to 20 years, again, depending on wear and tear.
Okay. All right, do you have any questions, Mr. Claffey?
Actually, did you, I know you're busy, very busy, but did they come out and show you the difference?
I think actually they went ahead and included pictures of the difference. And yes, they had a conversation with Tara and Dr. Andrade and physically showed just some different materials and stuff. I wasn't in there, but based off of the pictures I saw and the quotes and their recommendation, they're very
I
comfortable
was wondering if they
with.
could hear the difference somehow. If they said, okay, watch this, and then blah, 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 and blah, blah. But if they did that on the video?
Yeah, I'm not positive. But it definitely sounded like there was some type of barrier there for sure to block out the noise.
So this is money is coming from the trust fund that's $300,000? Is listed in, is that what that's coming from, that line?
So this is coming, I'm not sure where you got the 300,000 from. So there is a trust fund for district office. My understanding with that trust fund is it was to be used for updates to district office. We already did the kitchen renovation earlier in the year. Plant operations had finished that, and then this is a portion of it. There's some ideas back and forth of should we replace some of the furniture that's right in district office? Does any of the conference room furniture need to be updated too?
Okay. Yeah, I got it from that line, 81,200 capital outlay improvements, and it's a $300,000 balance in there.
I actually think that's probably all of our trust fund balances.
Oh, all of them together.
So I think you're referring to the 300,000 that's in our operating budget.
Yes.
This is directly in a trust fund. So again, as we move through the budget, I think it's going to be important to list out. We have operating funds, we have a special revenue fund, and we go ahead and have some trust funds.
The account number that ends in 81200, it's the same as the account number in the operating budget. I don't know, I don't know what I'm not understanding. Wouldn't it be a different account number if it was a trust fund?
So it would be, these reports you have in front of you should only be the overall operating budget. So think of the spreadsheets that you're looking at, the detailed expenditure report. We should have something similar to that, I believe, for the trust fund. So for the board meeting on Monday, if you'd like, I can get you a balance of what's sitting in that specific account.
Oh, yeah, sure, that would be great.
Yep.
Okay. All right, I don't have any more questions. Do you guys? Okay, so make a motion to approve the lowest and most comprehensive bidder, CRF Inc., for a folding panel partition between district office conference rooms at an amount not to exceed $12,250 from account 91.1010 .014600.81200. And can I get a second?
So moved.
Thank you. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay. Okay, next, the credit card report?
Yeah. So this is the first time I think we've sat together. Actually, we might have done it at the end of September as well, but we usually like to share the credit card report on a quarterly basis. So this is my district credit card, corporate card. Dan Donovan also had a similar one. So these are purchases that are made throughout the year related to, and you can see the breakout and the credit card report, but related to any expenses that we need to go ahead and pay. This is something that if it's charged in the month of October and there is, like, October shows $784.57, that is something that's always paid off in full the next month. So the credit card report, these are various charges that have been charged through the system. And again, all this money ends up coming out of the operating budget based off of the category that it's in. So I guess a couple I would just point out, and I'm not sure in the past what Mr. Donovan has done, but just a few things that caught my eye when I looked at it. So if you look at December, there was $4,155.74 charged to a travel line. Yep. So that was for travel or a conference and seminar that our 21st Century team is going to be attending. So we had to go ahead and pay ahead of time with a corporate card for them to be able to either book their travel, whether it was airfare or a hotel. So that money will basically be paid with a corporate credit card, and then it will almost be reimbursed directly through 21st Century Grant. So just as an example. The other one that kind of caught my eye as I was reviewing this on a monthly basis, so November, if you look at the technology software, so there is a purchase for $12,876. Again, similar, there was a technology purchase that needed to be done related to software. It's a software we've always utilized. They went ahead and changed their process, and they wanted us to pay it with a corporate card or some type of debit credit card versus us putting in a purchase order. So that's why you see that dollar amount there. Again, that will be paid, it will be 100% paid, and then that charge does get moved over to the IT budget.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know in the past kind of what you guys have discussed or not discussed related to the credit card report, but I felt like if I kind of sat back and said, well, if I was on the opposite side and seeing this, then what are some questions I might have?
Yeah, I was just looking quickly, the March travel was 19,000. Do you know what that was for?
If I had to guess, back in March, it was probably related to some type of conference or seminar. I'm surprised we didn't talk about it last year,
Might have.
but maybe. Most of the time, anytime you book like a conference and seminar, or you're trying to book airfare or whatnot, you need some type of physical card. We don't go ahead and give our employees corporate cards like some other organizations do. So if we're trying to book like a team to go together to some type of conference and travel all together, they'll use the corporate card for that. And then again, if it's 21st century, we'll go ahead and pull it out of the grant.
Okay.
Maybe we can, I'm sorry.
Okay, go
Maybe we'll ask Dr. Andre if we can remember to ask him at our next full meeting. This will be on there, right?
Absolutely.
We're going to vote on this, so we'll be voting in the full board.
Yep.
Can I ask another? This is a small accounting question. It's just bothering me.
Okay, go for it.
So I'm looking at the quarterly, the bottom right,
Yes.
and I'm thinking the quarterly totals and the monthly totals should be the same, and there's a really small discrepancy. But then I look at the $486.92, which doesn't extend into the far right column for annual. And I'm trying to figure out if that's the difference between the monthly total and the quarterly. If that, because it didn't carry over
Yep,
to the final column. Is that it?
that's exactly what it is. Yep.
And that should pretty much even it up, right?
And then I think we got one more missing. So if you look at November, 5560, which is a printing line, it looks like $130 was spent in November. That also didn't carry all the way over to that
Oh, it did,
annual
yep.
total.
So that's 130 plus 486, and if we had, so once you do a little copy and paste, those two numbers in the bottom right will be the same, right?
Yep.
And it's really minute, it's not a big deal, just,
Yeah, in the accounting terms, I would call it immaterial, but
Yes.
I like my numbers to tick and tie 100%. So we will fix that for the next board meeting.
wasn't just,
Okay. Do we need a motion?
Excel issue.
Yeah,
Do we need a motion to accept this? I can't remember.
I don't,
Oh, maybe we
I'm
do.
not positive if you guys have, or if the team has done it
Should be.
in the past. My understanding with this and the financial reports usually is, it's more of a awareness piece, but
This- Okay. Well, if we find out that we need to do it, then we'll do it.
okay. So just for clarity, so that we're 100% prepared for Monday. So we'll get the sheet updated so that it carries over to the annual total, right? So those numbers tick and tie, as I like to say. It's immaterial, but it still should tick and tie. And then the questions that you had for Dr. Andrade, do you want me to dig into what that 19,000 was in March? I'd be happy to. Again, if I had to guess, it's probably usually in the springtime, there's some type of conferences and seminars that are
Remember
booked.
you went to Arizona, I can't believe that was a year ago, but I think they went to Arizona, California,
They went to California.
California. Close enough. West.
Yeah, and this would be anyone in the district that's traveling. So again, I pointed out the 21st century team because I know they went ahead and came in and said, can I grab the corporate credit card out of the safe? And I said, well, what is it for? Right, so I knew they were gonna purchase it. So the corporate card is locked up in the safe in my office. Nobody's allowed to go in there unless they actually have prior approval, so.
Okay. All these totals would come out of the operating budget every month, right?
Unless it is a grant-funded activity.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
but yes, yep, either operating or the grant funding.
Okay.
Yep. And with, again, with the grants, and sorry if I'm sharing too much, but related to the grants, it's going to be approved ahead of time, right? So they put an activity in. If the activity is approved by the state, then that gives us basically the approval to be able to go ahead and spend those funds.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right. So now the January financial report.
Yep. All right, so if you look at the first attachment that's in there, so it is the detailed expenditure report. And just a few things to point out before we look kind of line by line. So if you scroll to the last page, or page 4 of 5, it looks like overall, from an overall budget standpoint, we've gone ahead and used 52.01%. If we think about where we are throughout the year, we're more than halfway through, right? So basically, this is a snapshot of July 1 through June 30th. So we're talking 7 months, if I do my numbers correctly. I actually think that percentage is slightly lower than where we were this time last year. And as I mentioned at last month's meeting, if I had to guess the reason why that is slightly lower, it's because, remember our out-of-district coordinator position? We had a vacancy for a little bit. We had somebody that had come in for a few, I don't even know if it was a few months, I think it was a few weeks. And the new individual that's in there really is trying to get caught up to bill for out-of-district cost. So I would expect by March, when we're sitting and having finance and ops, I would expect that overall percentage to be increased. The other reason why that's probably lower is, remember, we're coming into the winter months. The heat's been turned on a lot more. The plant operation side is a little bit lower in the utilities, but we usually sometimes between month 6 and month 8, you kind of see a little bit of a less amount used. And then next month, we'll probably start to see some of those heating bills kick in. So from a wages standpoint, I think right on track, we're right about 50%, makes sense as we move forward. And then transportation as well. Transportation is a little lower than this time last year. I think with some of the turnover that we had in the transportation department as well, the invoices maybe were not being coded in a timely manner. So at this point, we should be caught up to date in February with the transportation stuff. If you're okay, I'll jump to the overall expenditure report, the next attachment. Go ahead.
I just have one question. So,
Yeah.
according to this, salaries and wages are 4884, right?
Yep.
How can it be that way? Because we're halfway through the school year, so I expect to be at 50%.
Yep.
But our staff is also lower than expected or budgeted for.
So remember, any open positions that we would have, if they are currently being filled by contract service, you're not going to see that in the roll-up on the 51s, which is your salary and wages line. So contract services, and we've talked about this a little bit throughout the year, contract services is higher. So if you take contract services and your wages full-time or your wage buckets and put those two together, we're very similar to where we were last year. It just depends on kind of where the bucket is.
But what number should contract services come out of? So if
Well,
51,
Yep, contract services is coming out of the correct line, because if we are contracting out for, like, call it PT, OT, even some of our special ed teaching positions that we're not able to fill with a full-time person, you're not gonna see that in the wages line, you're gonna see that in the contract service line
in 53.
in 53. Let me double check to make sure that's the correct number. Hold on. Yep. 53 is where your professional and technical services are. So see how your overall, the 53's professional and technical services are 71.43% used at this time? And it's because those contract services are up.
But so we're still at 50% in 51 because we're paying for those contract services in 53 out of 51? I'm just trying to get it
Yep.
clear. I want to write it.
So I think if we take the 51s and we take the 53s, the wages in the 51s and the 53s within contract services, and we mesh those together, you're sitting right around 50% in one bucket and 71% in the other bucket. You mesh those together, we're gonna be right at roughly 60%, which is where I would expect us to be this time throughout the year, because we're 6 months in.
And that would be standard practice, because I know for other things, we can't take out of other buckets, but for this, we can.
Yep, so, I mean, there's gotta be a way for us to pay these contract service people, right? And unfortunately, if we're not able to hire people full-time and pay them out of wages, then in order for us to meet the needs of our students, we're gonna have to go ahead and contract service.
Is this why the staff, the wages, the full-time wages for this month were $3 million higher than they have been?
No, we actually had an extra pay period.
Oh, yes,
So-
of course, thank you.
Yep.
I got paid extra too. Thanks.
So in the month of January, good thing to mention, in the month of January, we actually had 3 full-time pay cycles, just based off of how the calendar fell. So that's why January is higher.
Okay.
Yep.
So speaking of January, I'm looking at the regular transportation services for January.
Yes.
Is that a billing anomaly? Because it's just so much, 1.247 million, looking at the other months.
Neil, are you looking at the first set of
Oh, actually, I'm sorry, I'm
spreadsheets?
ahead. I'm on the,
55?
yeah, it's 55, but I guess I am ahead. Sorry, we'll wait.
No, you're fine. Let's talk about transportation.
I'm looking at the monthly, that's the problem, and we're not there yet, right?
No, go ahead now.
No, go
Okay.
ahead.
Yeah,
So
January.
you're
I'm
looking
on
at
the
month-
second set,
Yep.
page, 55, the very last item, January, regular transportation services.
And you're looking at, so special ed transportation services, are you looking at page 3 of 5?
I am looking at page 2 of 5.
2 of 5. Yes, regular transportation. Sorry, I was looking at special education is on the opposite page. So yeah, see, similar to special education as well, transportation, we can see that in July and August, well, July was minimal, that's summer school. We started to get a little bit of invoices in August, September, October. It looks like from a timing standpoint, we didn't pay in as much in transportation in November and December. And then we got hit basically with 3 months in February. Again, as we know, we've been trying to hire a transportation coordinator. I know I had just signed in the month of January a substantial stack of transportation invoices.
Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
yes,
But
that
it's
is
still
why.
less than half of the allocated amount, so
Yep,
I just, billing, just catching up with bills, right?
yes, absolutely.
I wanted to go back to contract services.
Sure.
Because looking at the line, it looks like we only have enough for 3 months. And I'm wondering what we're going to do for May and June. Am I understanding you that we're going to take that money out of 51 salaries and wages?
So I think it's going to depend on where we are, honestly. I think we've run into this year over year, right? And based off of my prior conversations with Mr. Donovan, usually like that April timeframe is when we start to do those forecasts with you folks.
Okay.
So from a forecasting standpoint, if we think, which I'm already thinking we will, need additional funds and contract services, we are going to have to figure out where are we pulling them from, right? And that's going to be work on our side to say, is it more wages? Is it contract services of OTPT? If it's wages for open positions that have not been filled, then yes, we can move wage money into contract services. So I'm already anticipating that, yes, we will go ahead and move the money over into contract services. I'm not 100% positive yet where it will all come from.
If we have to take from the special revenue fund, I'm just wondering, I'm not sure on, I don't know how much money comes into that every year, so I'm not sure if we'll be able to replenish it.
So it depends on which special revenue funds. So last year, like towards the tail end of the year, there was some money that we did actually go ahead and pay some of the contract services out of special revenue. The challenge that we have to remember with special revenue is if there's not enough in those lines to pull and we don't have enough in operating, then we would have to go and ask for an appropriation to go ahead and pull additional money. So
From the city?
from the city. Yep. So we have a fund balance already in special revenue, and I think as Dr. Andrade and I have talked, as we move through the budget, I think it will be really important to talk about operating, to talk about special revenue, to talk about the grants. Because what I'm seeing when we're coming in here is sometimes there's, I think, just more information of what are all the different revenue buckets, what are all the different accounting units that we're able to pull from.
Well, I know that we had discussed that for special education, there was a revenue,
Yep.
a special fund, and that we can pull from without involving the city at all, correct?
Correct, as long as we have it budgeted, yes.
How would we budget it? We'd have to add it to the budget?
So at the budget process at the start, we go ahead and anticipate how much revenue are we going to pull in? We'll use the special education one, for example. So how much out-of-district revenue are we going to bring in? How much expenses are we going to need? Those two items really should tie unless we've already said upfront, we want to pull some money out of special revenue, out of the fund balance line. So that's almost like, think of a checkbook, that's almost like your beginning balance. And then as revenue comes in, expenses come in, if there's anything left over from a revenue standpoint, that's what increases
So
your
we
special
can't,
revenue.
pull from that special revenue fund for this year?
Nope, we can, but what I'm saying is we can only pull from special revenue what we have budgeted. So for instance, say our costs end up being, let's hope not, but $1 million more than what we anticipate. What needs to happen is where are we going to pay for that? Is it coming out of operating? Is it coming out of special revenue? And it's going to be almost like a puzzle piece to figure out exactly how we're going to support those costs that are coming in. I'm like pointing, like you can see my screen.
Yeah.
I think, again, as we move through the budget process, I think it'd be helpful for you guys to all see, like, from a special revenue standpoint, here's what's sitting in special education. And year over year, you don't want to continue to keep hitting that special revenue with $1 million, because at some point, you're going to deplete it.
Yeah, that's what I'm concerned about.
Yep. So I don't believe we're going to deplete it this year. And I think, if we are planning as much as we possibly can into the future, we should never deplete our special revenue accounts. But again, it's a fine balance of how much revenue is coming in, how much expenses.
The thing is that we come here and we approve things that, like say, we approve all these things that are nice to have. But if there's not enough money in the coming years for the special education programs, then we're not going to be able to approve any of these things anymore. We're going to have to really, I know they come from different areas, like the CTE stuff comes from that program. And I just feel like things are going to get things might get bad over the next couple of years. And I really want to be able to, understand how we're managing our money and how we're going to be able to keep educating the kids the best we can.
Yep. And I truly, I'm not trying to punt the can down the road whatsoever, please know that.
It's budget.
I really think the budget season this year, it's gonna be so important for us to almost walk through like some type of chart to say, here's operating, what can we spend out of operating? Or what do we normally spend out of operating? Here's the special revenue accounts, what normally comes out of special revenue. Because again, think of it as it's all a pool of money. It just depends, is it coming out of our operating? Is it coming out of special revenue? Is it coming out of grants? At the end of the day, it's all the Nashua School District's money. But what bucket is it coming out of? And we'll have a chart through the budget season to I hope some of that will kind of be clarified.
Okay, I'm sorry, I have one more question. I just noticed that the out-of-district placement is up around 67%. And I was wondering if you guys are concerned about running out of money for that.
So the transportation position and the out-of-district position, remember we had turnover this year for both of those extremely important positions. We did meet last month, I think I mentioned it last month when I was here, that as of right now, we're not seeing out-of-district tuition is gonna be over budget. But I do think we're behind in billing because we were missing somebody in that seat. So I am keeping an extremely close eye on it as we move forward, meeting with that team monthly, and we should have a better handle, I would say, from that forecasting piece as we get till like the April timeframe. But year over year, we have seen that is one of the areas we've spent more than we anticipated.
Okay.
And again, it depends, right? It really depends on the needs of those students, and I know we don't get into specifics in here, but from an overall budget standpoint, history has shown, unfortunately, we have gone over budget in those items.
Okay. Okay. All right, that's it for me, I think. You had a question?
So, like, and then next, when you decide that you're gonna explain these things, I think that it'll be very important to, like, say which accounts we can transfer from and everything like that, because like I said, I'm real thankful that you are here and that you explain it so that we can understand it. And that was one of the things, like when Mr. Donovan was here, that I kept asking him, like, okay, so what's going on here? Because if I understand you correctly, even though we're doing things that are needed for the last 20 or 30 years, there is all coming out of the budget and essentially gonna drain the special revenue because we won't have those things to spend out of there?
No, I want to be cautious about saying drain, right? I think anybody that's in my seat, the superintendent's seat, I would hope, has the intention to say, if we're getting to a point where we're starting to see a drain happen, that we're coming to the board ahead of time and saying, hey, time out, we think we're not gonna have enough money. As I mentioned, going into budget, it's gonna be extremely important for us to come to you folks on the board to say, here's how we go ahead and spend, and here's what we have available. Because I just had my admin kick me over the special revenue report for special education. We have a fund balance sitting in there of 2.7 million, right? So what can we utilize that money for? That money we can utilize for contract services. We were just talking about some special education contract services. We can use that for tuition out of district if we need it. And yes, Shawanda, to your point, we want to be extremely cautious, and I'm going to be as cautious as possible, right, when we're looking year over year of what our expenses are going to be. And I think, again, when we're going through the budget, it's going to be extremely important to show what is operating, what is special revenue, and what is grants. And hopefully it will clarify some of it. And I'm a transparent book, like, come to the office if you want to sit and look at some of this stuff. I'm happy to. I'm sure Dr. Andrade would be more than happy to have you folks come in. I know Regan's come and sat with me. Absolutely, more than happy to teach you and show you and explain. So I'm trying to be as transparent as I can with you folks because I think it's important when you're making the decisions you're making.
Okay, so now we have the transfer reports.
Yep. Perfect. All right, so the first one you should have in front of you from a transfer standpoint should be from Nashua High School North. So they were going ahead and moving some of their educational supplies of $4,949.95 into computer software and miscellaneous equipment. The next one you'll see is from the science department. Looks like they need to purchase, we moved some money over to educational supplies so that they could go ahead and purchase some educational supplies for the science department. Same thing, the math department, moving some money out of your 71,221 into your educational supply line. Another one in here, same thing, educational supplies. We're trying to get the secretaries better about doing these kind of all on one sheet. We really don't need to do them on individual sheets. But same thing here, to purchase some additional educational supplies. And we're pulling it out of the 71,221, 71,228 account. This next one, it should be entry 103 from district office that you have in front of you. So this was to cover some overages on the Konica invoices. So this is our printing, our paper printing copy machines. We were gonna be over, so we did go ahead and make a transfer for that. Again, it depends on how much people print. Are they printing in color? Are they printing in black and white? So every year we tend to see invoice come in for the overage. This was part of that overage that came in. And then the last one you have in front of you is to move wages from a position that was not hired, and we were going ahead and purchasing some computer equipment. So this was actually from Broad Street, or this is happening for Broad Street. We're removing a TIA position that Broad Street is not utilizing. They look to go ahead and purchase some computer equipment, and that's why the transfer was made.
I was just wondering, it seems like there's a lot going on with the computer equipment this month. We had 3 different transfers, one for 1,800, one for 2,000, and one for 1,980 that were moved out of computer equipment. But then this one was moved into computer equipment. I'm just wondering what happened.
So several of these transfers that are in front of you are at the school level versus IT's budget as a whole. I was looking to see if Dr. Andrade was here yet. So as we've been talking through the budget process, we've been talking about what is the responsibility at the school level for some of the IT purchases, some of the computer equipment purchases, and what really should be more of a district-wide technology policy. So these are specific to the schools, and we are moving money from certain line items that the schools are getting over into other buckets that they are requiring for some of their needs.
Okay. So this is something that is kind of just a change in procedure that's people really aren't that comfortable with yet? I don't know that I'd say it's a change in procedure. We've always done budget transfers.
I think as we're going through the budget process, my thing would be, at the school level, they have such little money that they have available from a budget standpoint to run their schools. Why are we having them use some of their school level money for computer equipment or certain IT purchases? I'd say the same thing, certain plant operations purchases,
Okay.
related to, maybe it's a cafeteria table. The cafeteria tables come out of the school level budget, not an overall plant operations budget. Doesn't really seem fair when those things are like $2,000, $3,000, $4,000.
What do you envision the school budgets being spent on?
I really think that should be on like the day-to-day of what those students need, right? It shouldn't, in my opinion, it shouldn't be an IT budget that is, if we as a district have an IT policy that it's a one-to-one Chromebook and something breaks, why should the school level be having to pay for some of that out of their such small budget? So I think we're starting to change maybe some of the prior practice, and I'd like to envision it more of, what is the IT approach moving forward? What is our policy? You heard kind of when CTE was here. What is CTE's envision for the next 3 to 5 years? You heard Helene say, Crystal, Dr. Andrade has said, what is your envision over the next 3 to 5 years? I'd say the same thing for plant operations, the same thing for IT. What does that plan look like?
All right. Did you have a question?
I guess, can I start with the question for this one right here? And then I want to go back to what we were just talking about.
Mr. Wanda, I just want you to be, we have to be done by.
Okay, so then I'll start there. So at the beginning, we bought all those Chromebooks and extra ones just in case we needed to replace it and stuff. And we are still taking it from the budgets from the school?
Well, the one-to-one Chromebooks, I think every school is different, is what we're seeing throughout, right? And what I was referring to is it would be really nice to see a district policy related to IT. Like, does each of the schools have to purchase their own Chromebooks? I think, do each of the schools have to repair their own Chromebooks? I think every school, what we are seeing from the budget process, every school is doing something slightly different. I think we need to come together as a district and try to be more uniform to, if it's an IT policy, like IT should be responsible for it. Like any other company I've worked for, if a computer breaks, you go to the IT department. I'm not going to my boss to say, hey, my computer broke, right? So I think this year is really a learning year to say, what have we been doing from a budgetary standpoint? What maybe should we be doing for some best practices moving forward? My understanding at the school level is yes, if there is a computer that has been broken or a Chromebook, again, each school is different, but there hasn't always been a practice that IT is fixing it out of their budget versus the school or vice versa.
I would really like to dive into that because that was not my understanding when we decided to purchase in bulk these Chromebooks for the kids, and then we had to get the licenses for them, and they said that it was because they keep breaking them and IT was fixing them, and that's exactly why we had to do that.
Yeah, again, I want to be clear that I'm not saying that IT is not fixing them.
Okay.
What I am saying is there are some inconsistencies with how the schools are doing things, whether it's IT related in one-to-one Chromebooks, or it's cafeteria tables, or it's furniture and desks and all of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, when you come right down to it, it's really only $1,400 when we have a budget of $186 million.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, at the school level, I mean, their budgets are roughly like all together, all the schools that we have, you're only talking like 1% of our overall budget. So I think there's ways to create consistencies. I just want to be cautious of time. I know that
Yeah, I
the
can,
next team's here. I just had
I
one
think
other
before we
update.
accept this, I wanted to ask a question. So this last financial report says that we're taking wages of money for a position that was not hired for and repurposing it for funds for computer equipment purchase, right? So the same thing that we're talking about, but we just talked about that we were at 56%, 71%, and then we were gonna have to dip into other accounts. So why would we allow this? Like, why would we allow the $20,000 to come out of a budgeted teacher position that we know we're gonna have to fix later?
So this was not a teacher position per se. This was what is considered a TIA position.
Okay, a TIA.
So the school did not go ahead and hire this position. We as a district went ahead and said, well, if you're not going to go ahead and hire that position, they didn't feel it was valuable to their specific school. What did they want to do with the money? They did a business presentation to myself and Dr. Andrade to go ahead and get some additional computer equipment in their class, in their library. And yes, so we went ahead and moved $20,196 out of wages and moved it into their school-specific computer equipment line.
okay,
So one update before we close out, if that's okay, Regan.
okay.
There was a question related to the $19,000 back in March on the credit card report. My admin has sent me a message letting me know it was for a DECA trip that was funded.
Okay.
So that's why there was $19,000 spent.
All right, that's good. Thank you for finding out so quick. Okay, so I'm going to make a motion to accept the fiscal year 25 January transfer report.
So moved.
And all in favor, say aye. Aye. Joined.
Aye.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so that's all in favor. We've accepted the transfer report. And now I need a motion, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And we are adjourned at, do you know what the time?
6:53.
Okay, thank you. We're adjourned at
Sorry,
5:53
5:53.
PM. Thank you.